Welcome to Dysfunctionally Yours, the podcast where we embrace the chaos, laugh through the struggles, and find hope on the other side of trauma. I'm your host, Brittany, and if you've ever felt like your life was a beautifully messy roller coaster of dysfunction, trust me, you're in good company. Here, we'll have real, raw, and sometimes ridiculous conversations about mental health, relationships, and healing, because let's be honest, life isn't always pretty, but that doesn't mean we can't come out of it stronger and maybe even smiling. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of bubbles, and let's navigate this wild journey together, dysfunctionally, but never alone.
Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Dysfunctionally Yours. I'm your host, Brittany. This week, I plan to do a what makes you dysfunctional, ask me anything episode, really kind of lighten it up, coming off of the that boundaries series. Let it be a little bit fun, get some laughs, some ha-has. And that was the plan. And then life showed up for me and gave me a funeral, a couple birthday parties, family plot twists. And so we're changing it up because I told you in the very beginning I was going to show up as my most real and authentic self all the time. And I could not be being my most authentic self if I was trying to push through a very curated, planned out episode, because that's just truly not where I am right now. And that's okay. The whole point of the podcast in the very beginning was to be able to make it normal, make the dysfunction normal, make the good days and the bad days normal, and really understand that you can be in both places at one time. And so I was like, well, this week, to be fair, the past few weeks, they've really just been that exact thing. They have been, right, I do an ache and relief of the week. Let's be honest, this entire week was the ache and the relief. So it didn't make sense to just do that. It made sense to do what felt really natural and where I am right now. So I do want to give a little bit of a trigger warning because there's going to be some mention of suicide and then the grief of that. And if you need help, there's resources posted in the description. I will also list some out at the end of this episode, but I do want you to be aware that there will be mentions of it. Not going in depth, not doing anything like that, but I wanted you to know where we might land a little bit. So, with all of that, grief and grief and celebration, a little bit of life stress, sat with me this week at the same table. And that's awkward, right? Like whenever you are in two massive places at one time where you can have this very, very, very large guest of grief and loss and fear, and also be sitting there and be happy and content and really, really, really appreciative of everybody that's around you and how grateful you are for that. So to sit at that same table and be comfortable being the host of it is that one's tricky. That's an awkward dinner party. And it leaves for some big feelings and a lot of processing afterwards, right? It was really one of those, remember back in the day when we were kids and we had those mood rings, changed all of the colors or whatever. I think if there was a color, it would just be confused. The color would show confused, whatever that color is. I don't even know. And that's okay. It's okay. We as human beings really want to know everything. We want answers to everything. We want to be able to wrap everything up and make it make sense. And And if we can't make it make sense right now, we want to know when we're going to be able to make it make sense. Give me a timeline. Tell me what that timeline's going to be. And I heard something said at this funeral the other day that there was no way to tie it up in a bow. There was no way to just make it make sense and be okay. And that really resonated with me in that moment. And it was really something that I wish I would have heard maybe in that same forum whenever my brother died, because for so long I felt like I was like searching for it to make sense. And it was like, when will it make sense? When will it be better? When? And the answer that took a really long time to actually find was like, there isn't one. There's no way to make it make sense. There's no pretty little bow on this package. And to really just be okay with that and really understanding that. And so um that was interesting. I also, with that being said, spent a lot of time with family this week. Close family, extended family, lots of family, just because we did have this death. My cousin's niece had completed suicide. So there was a lot of together. together. And in doing that, and all of us coming together to be very supportive and to kind of grieve or celebrate together. Oh, hi, Philip. Hello. Um, there was like I said, a lot of contact with family, and I make it very well known that I'm pretty estranged from my family, that I prefer it to be that way because of boundaries and choices and whatnot, right? I'm pretty vocal about that. But it did, all of this togetherness did bring up the opportunity for some conversations that really needed to be had between me and another person, another family member that, I do love very, very, very dearly, and also have put up some very big boundaries and roadblocks. And it allowed for some conversations of that to start. And so, that takes this big, like, oh, like, you think you're on a path, you think you're on this trajectory, like, this is where we are, this is what it is what it is, and this is what it's always going to be. And then something shifts, and you have to pivot with this. You have to pivot, you have to think, you have to uh really take into consideration how you're going to show up when things like that catch you off guard. Because, like, let's be honest, how many of us plan for unexpected moments? I'll let you ponder that one. None of us plan for unexpected moments. It's pretty hard to do. And if we do over plan for things of that nature, especially when dealing with humans, then put up these walls. They no longer become walls, but they become like barriers. And people can't get through barriers. And so we want to, in order to remain somewhat soft, you can still have boundaries, but like it's important to like have boundaries, but not be so guarded that nobody can get through. Like, you need a little bit of softness. Like, we're humans, and everybody else is humans too, right? We're all just doing the very best that we can. So those conversations started. And that brings up a lot of big feelings too. There's also been a lot of seeing other people struggle right now, and that takes a lot of compassion. And when trying to be compassionate and empathetic and supportive to other people that are struggling, having a hard time, those are where some of those boundaries really, really come into play, because you need to be able to like give yourself somewhat, but also protect yourself a little tiny bit. And, to watch people struggling over this suicide that has happened really brought up a lot of big feelings for me because of Chase. And granted, it's been 3 years, but some days it seems like it was yesterday. And other days it feels, well, not like it was yesterday. Oh, shit. And so really being able to like be there, put myself out there, and then realize like this is also not about me, right? I don't get to like make this about me because in this moment, this is about somebody else. This is about other people. And so I've really had to be like, okay, not the time to talk about that, not the time to say that, not the time to be like, oh, I can totally relate. No, I cannot. No, I cannot. I know what this experience felt like for me. I don't know what it felt like for other people. And there were a lot of times where I was like, I can't even step into this. And I was like, but I need to step into this because I love these people that it's impacting on a closer like level. And so, but I had to have some of these boundaries and like put myself where I could be, and not go where I knew I couldn't go. So that has been a lot, right? Like that's a lot. Like my emotions are at max capacity. Like just so much going on. And I had a friend's birthday party to go to. We had an incredible time, an incredible night out. My I had another like family birthday to go to, and for like a tiny human, not a big human. And so watching like the little people in the world be so excited and just laugh at the small things and find joy in Labubu's, so many Labubus. It was very, very nice, right? And it's a beautiful, delicate reminder, this balance of like all these big, big, big adult things can be happening. And also, we still need to save space at this table for the beautiful things, for the fun things, for the exciting things, and then sometimes be able to step back a little bit and see the world through somebody else's eyes. And not everybody's going through that challenging turmoil at the same time. And that's okay. And sometimes that's what's needed to be able to like put yourself there next to them in their bright spot. Put yourself next to them in their exciting moments and step out of yours, out of that darkness for just a little bit. It's a balance. And there's a huge contrast in these feelings, but at the end of the day, like laughter truly, truly, truly is the best medicine, and to really be able to hold on to those types of things. So, like I said, there's been a lot. That's like, small little overview. Definitely been a lot, but that's why I said like it would be inauthentic of me to come and be like, yeah, let's talk about pet peeves. Let's talk about how you deal with the difficult coworker. Like, I don't know. There's other things. This is real. This is where we are today. And that's okay. And then to sort of tie that all up, my brother is my brother's gonna go spend some time, uh, you know, behind bars, and like some time, some time, and that is grief. There is a huge loss there. There is a massive, massive loss there, um, of not having any more brothers. Whenever that's all I ever wanted. So, you know, we are juggling. We are juggling a lot. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of feelings there. There is a lot of feelings there. So that's okay. Anyways, let me circle back a little bit to the funeral. If you know me, like know me, I talk a lot about funerals, not necessarily everybody else's funeral, but like my funeral, I know I'm alive. It's fine. Just like lots of planning, like this is what I would want. This is how I would want this to be. I don't want my kid, like whatever. If you know, I'm not going to get into it, but like I spend a lot of time. I'm very observant about funerals. There was a line that was said in the like ceremony the other day, and they said, and it seems so obvious, but sometimes we need to hear the obvious things too. They said grief changes you forever. And again, that's also something that I wish I would have heard 3 years ago, that grief changes you forever, right? I've talked about how much I just wanted to get back to the Brittany that I was before Chase died. And then it wasn't until like, I don't know, the past year or so that I realized like, oh, I'll never, or I at least came to terms with the fact that I will never be her again. And while she was very lovely and I miss that version of her so very much, there is a new version of me that I really needed to accept and step into and not be mad at or angry at or sad for, but really just be like, this is a different level of growth. This is a different level of experience. This is just a different place. And, it can be heavy. And I am also the first person to say that I 100% believe that I'm a better person today than I was 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, even. It came with a lot of softness, and I would never have said that there was a softness before. It was much too guarded, right? So to hear this very blanket statement, but it be so powerful of like grief changes you forever. I needed to hear that today, and I wish I would have heard it in that capacity then too, to be able to accept that. So I think that with that, I should mention, without going too far into it, it is September. September is Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. In the past, I've spent a lot of time talking about my journey, my brother's journey, my story, the aftermath, what grieving a suicide looks like, and that it's very different and it is very complicated. There's a lot of complex guilt. There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of, just what ifs, and there's really no conclusion. There's really not this like, it's okay. They're in a better place. There isn't those types of things, but like suicide and mental health are big platforms that I feel very passionately about. And this September, I really didn't spend a lot of time focusing on it because I spent a lot of time in like May and, well, not May, in like June and July, kind of talking about those things. So, but I do want to acknowledge that mental health matters, that everybody is going through something right now, and that's okay. And we as people need to really understand that people need people. We need one another. And, the things that are a burden for me to carry aren't necessarily a burden for you to carry. There are so many resources out there right now. And so if you are struggling in any way, shape, or form, please know that there are resources. Again, I'm going to put those in the description of the episode, and I'm also going to list some of them at the end. But I need everybody to know, like, you are not alone, and you matter, and we need you here. So with that, I kind of like pivot to the other guests at the table, these bright spots, right? I went to a birthday party on Friday night, and there was, I don't know, there was a bunch of us there, and it was so much fun to just go. It was like no family. It was nobody that had any like they like strangers with this side of the table, right? Like doesn't know anything about anything. And so to really just go celebrate my friend, celebrate with friends, they kept playing Britney Spears. Like whoever was in charge of the music was clearly playing their Britney Spears playlist, because every couple of songs Britney Spears came on and we are just like belting out Britney Spears at the top of our lungs. So excited about all of this, like really living in our Britney Spears era. Well, maybe not all of us. I know some of us were like dying from, like silent embarrassment. Like, oh my God, why won't they stop singing so loudly? But as we know, I'm the songbird of our time. And if the music comes to me, the music comes to me. I just can't even help it. And I don't even care. No, it was actually just a great, 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 great night. And to drive home at the end of the night and, walk in my house, which is a disaster because I'm packing. So it's chaos. But like to walk and be like, but this is my chaos. This is where I am. And I have so many beautiful things to be grateful for. And I had such a great time. And I laughed so hard all night long. And we'll clean up the rest of this, just living sort of in the mess and through the mess. And I can really appreciate that, to be able to just step away from it and appreciate who I am and who I'm with, was really, really lovely. And then, like I said, I went to a tiny human birthday party and they were all running around decorating Labubu's and lip glosses. No, we decorated a lip gloss. Like these lip glosses, look, I have one for us to see. Have these, we put little like keychains on them with little charms. Like so cute. Um, little girls, they're fun. Fun little birthday party. So that was great. It was a good time. It was good to see everybody and laugh and enjoy the sun and eat some pizza and, like I said, watch other people just really enjoy the space that they're in and know that you were invited to be a part of that. And, to remember that two things can be true at one time, right? So I think that leads me into, acknowledging where I'm acknowledging that, we're inviting two very different guests to the table, so to speak. I think I would just put out there, like, if somebody were to ask me, what would you say? What would you tell somebody who had this week? Right? Because sometimes that's what I have to do. I have to step back and I have to be like, Brittany, what on earth would you tell us if somebody came to you and they were like, hey, this is what's going on? What would you tell them? And I have to take a step back from my own stuff and be like, okay, this is what I think I would need to hear. And this is definitely what I would tell somebody else. Um, it sounds like there's a lot going on and that's very challenging. And, what is one thing that you can do if you're struggling? And the one thing that I would recommend at the forefront of everything is reach out to somebody. Reach out to somebody, have a conversation. Honestly, it doesn't even need to be about the big, hard, scary things. Like I said, just being able to be with my friends and laugh and joke and, yuck it up, then, that was so needed and so valuable. And, we need that. We need to be able to step aside of ourselves sometimes. So call somebody, reach out, have a chat, ask somebody to go to coffee. You do not have to do it alone. I did mention some like family stuff, right? Estranged family members coming back. And then obviously the the stuff that's going on with my brother. And so it would be like, what one boundary do you need to keep in place? That's what I would ask somebody. Like, what one boundary do you need to keep in place to be okay with these things? And I personally, like I said at the beginning, it's not necessarily about staying guarded. It's about remembering that when we have those boundaries, you're able to open and close the door as you want and as you need to. And what do you need to do for you? You know, you can be soft and have a boundary. You can hear people out. You can have discussions. Your feelings matter the same way their feelings matter. And this is what it's like to be an adult, is to have these big, hard conversations. The other side of it, you know, maybe there's other parts of it, that you're like, nope, no boundary here. Like, no, this door has closed. This door is closed and we've thrown away a key. And only those are for you to decide. Those are not for me to decide. But I think really going through something like that, the question is, what boundary do you need to keep in place, and to be able to evaluate that, what your expectations for you are, what you need to get out of it for you are, and also how are you going to protect your peace on the other side of that. Are some doors willing to stay open, and are there others that you need to throw that key away? Those are tough decisions to make, but they're yours to make. Or I would say, what's one way that you can hold space for joy without guilt, right? You do not need to be a martyr. You do not need to have these things go on and stay miserable and sad and be like, oh, woe is me, poor me, because there are so many other bright spots of that. Like I said, even in going to the funeral, that also put me in position to spend a lot of time with family and friends that I had not spent time with in a while, and have some conversation. And there is something that's really special about that. There's this other thing that I took away from this funeral that was actually very, very sad. Oh, it's so sad. I heard really great things, and I'm like, that's great. I love that. I was looking around. The family that was there was so many of them, and they're all so close and they're all so tight. And that was actually so beautiful to see, because whenever they were talking about you don't have answers, you can't tie things up in a bow, they were also saying, tell stories, because the stories bring, their laughter back, and we all need to hear that laughter. We love those positive stories. And it was in this moment that I was like, that's actually really so, so, so valuable. I'm glad that they all have each other and they can share all of the stories that they need to about her. And it made me a little sad for me, because that is something that's very missing. I don't really have anybody that I get to talk about Chase to. Everybody in my family had such different relationships with him and didn't really know him, or we don't talk, right? I don't speak to the rattlesnake, and not everybody in my family is able to talk about him in a way that is helpful or good for maybe them, right? Maybe that's their boundary, that they're like, nah, fuck no, I don't want to talk about it. And that is actually okay for them, but like really sad for me that I don't really have anybody that I get to share stories about, and like that we can go back and forth and talk about him. And that's actually quite a loss. And I didn't really realize it until I was watching and observing from like the back row. And so I do love that for other people. And I've never been sad about, making all of these, like cutting people off or anything like that. I've never been sad about it. It does not bother me anymore at this point, because like I'm going to protect my peace. But that was a moment that I was like, that would have been cool. That would be cool. And, I'm very, very, very happy for my family that does have that in this situation, because I think that that's, it's valuable, and I didn't really realize that it was something that was missing. But like I said, the one way to hold on to your joy, and like I said, go to that birthday party. Like, it's easy to be like, I got a lot going on. I don't want to go to the birthday party, but also you're a human and you deserve to have a different part of your bucket filled and to be able to laugh. It's okay. It's okay to laugh. We don't need to crawl into a hole, right? So that's kind of where things are. And I didn't want it, I know it sounds maybe kind of heavy, but I really wanted it to be this place. I want it to come from this place where we can normalize that we don't always have the best weeks. We don't always have the best months. And it's all just a stepping stone. It's all just part of the journey. And we have control over how we navigate that journey. So if you're holding on to messy things right now, you're allowed to laugh and to be sad. You're allowed to be furious and to eat cake. You're allowed to love and need distance. Please, 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 please be kind to yourself and do all of these things at your own pace. Nobody else can make this pace for you. And you don't have a finish line that you're trying to get to. There is no finish line. It's just sort of getting through the muck to the other side where it's different or where it's slightly easier for a moment. If you're listening, I'm going to again list some of these resources. If you don't feel like the resources with all of that, I'm going to say, don't be afraid to be great. Toodles, poodles, bye. If you do want these resources, I'm going to list them. If you're in need of an immediate help and you're in the United States, you can call or text 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. If you are in the United Kingdom, you can call Samaritan. They are free 24/7. Call 116-123. There are resources there for you. Internationally at large, you can reach out to Befrienders or Befrienders Worldwide, and they can help you find local crisis centers wherever you are, just internationally. And of course, all of my friends in Canada, definitely check out socialchemistry.ca, where there are plenty of resources for Canada. There are resources, and anybody can go there on their website. There are playlists, there are podcasts, there are online resources, there are apps, there are mental health resources. It's just a plethora of information that you can utilize because you are not alone in this, and there are so many resources out there for every one of you. So with all of that, like I said, don't be afraid to be great. Reach out, get the help that you need. Toodles, poodles, bye.